Well, where to start? Back with a bang for the new season. Newcastle 5, Aston Villa 1. I'm here obviously inside St James's Park around an hour after the game. Firstly, just show you over my shoulder there. You can probably see that is Jamal Lascelles and Sean Longstaff being put through their paces on the pitch here at St James's Park after that 5-1 win. I'm trying to work out who the third player is. Well, Matt Targett it is. Being timed on their sprints, and I think that says everything for the regime here, Eddie Howe, and what he does. I'm trying to zoom in, camera won't let me, but you can see the players in the background. As Eddie Howe has just had his press conference inside on the back of that 5-1 win that sees Newcastle United go top of the Premier League table in weekend number 1. Obviously there's a few games still to go to tomorrow, but you'd imagine Newcastle will end up the weekend or after game week 1 top of the table. But what a game, what an atmosphere. It's as loud as I've heard it inside St James's Park here in a long time. But where else to start really than Sandro Tonali? I mean, firstly, I got it wrong. The rest of the journalists in the North East Pack got it wrong. We all expected Tonali to be on the bench tonight. Again, Eddie Howe proved us wrong by throwing him in from the start. And by the way, what a decision it was. He was magnificent today throughout the whole game. Came off after 92 minutes to, I was going to say a standing ovation. It was a standing ovation from the subs bench and Eddie Howe and his coaching staff. The supporters didn't realise he was going off because Newcastle at that point were celebrating their 5th goal in that 5-1 rout over Aston Villa. But I just thought, aside from his goal, which was a brilliant finish to keep the volley low into the net from the cross from Anthony Gordon, aside from that, aside from scoring on your debut inside 6 minutes, for me it was the way he completely bossed the second half. Just oozed class. I don't think he put a foot wrong all game long. I don't remember him passing to an Aston Villa player. He was unbelievable, and I think at 3-1, when a lot of the players were wanting to get forward, get their name on the score sheet, try and make assists, he just took the sting out of the game. He was just bringing the ball back, bringing players back to the goalkeeper, and he just completely dictated the pace of the game in the second half. And as I say, it lasted full 92 minutes plus 10 minutes in the first half. So he played 102 minutes today, and that's a guy who a lot of us thought, due to what manager had said, was still adapting to the pace of English football. If that is him still adapting to the pace of English football, what is he going to be like in a few months' time? Because it was an outstanding debut for the Italian. I've just been outside myself to the just outside St James's Park when the fans were leaving, and to a supporter all walking past singing Sandro Tonali's name, and this will be remembered as the dream debut for the Italian, because it was from the 6th minute onwards, it was his day. And it says everything that someone like Alexander Isak scored 2 goals, terrorised the Aston Villa defence, but still didn't receive man of the match due to the fact that Tonali was just so good. I actually thought if he did play, he'd probably play in the number 6 role, but he actually played in quite an advanced role in midfield. At times in the first half, he was pressing the Aston Villa central defenders as well, almost playing right up there behind Alexander Isak, in a role that we've not expected him to play, but it worked well for him. Will it work long term? I'm not so sure. I don't know whether Bruno Guimaraes is that comfortable in the holding number 6 position. I think he certainly would rather play in one of the attacking roles that Tonali and Joe Linton were playing today. I think maybe as time goes on we might see Tonali drop back, and as I say, I think the way he killed the game in the second half, took the sting out of it and started dictating, started almost positioning his players and telling them where to go, showed that he probably is most effective in that number 6. But listen, what are you going to say to a guy who's scored in his debut, could have had a second moments later and had a sensational debut? I think it said it all when he came off the pitch in the 92nd minute, and he received a huge hug from Eddie Howe, a big hug from Jason Tyndall as well, and I think they realised just how crucial a role he played in that match today. He was certainly a couple of seconds ahead of anyone else on the pitch. I mean, up in midfield there against guys like John McGinn biting at his ankles, Yuri Tielemans in the second half, class acts he's up against in there, and he was just the best man on the pitch by a mile. Now, I did think Alexander Isak was class. He took his 2 goals very, very well, particularly the second one with that little dinked finish over Emi Martinez, and he caused problems running in behind all the time. I would not bet against Isak scoring 25-30 goals this season. He looked razor sharp in pre-season, took it into today's game. So too did Anthony Gordon. I thought in the first sort of 15-20 minutes Aston Villa couldn't handle him. Of course, he set up the first with that little dinked cross for Tonali, and then he set Tonali through again later on. I thought he was sensational. Lasted just over an hour, and I think with the choice between him and Barnes wide left, it's an embarrassment of riches for Eddie Howe. I think one of the main differences today compared to last season with the options on the bench, you're turning to the bench and you're seeing Harvey Barnes and Callum Wilson coming on after around 65-70 minutes. You've then got Sean Longstaff, you've then got Elliot Anderson to come on, so there's real options on the bench now. Jacob Murphy was there, and there's guys like Matt Ritchie, Paul Dummett not even making the squad, so the longer they can keep everyone fit, you've got Joe Willock to come back into the frame as well, the better for Newcastle and Eddie Howe. And it's it must just be a joy to be part of that squad right now. It must be a joy to be on the bench and seeing what the players starting can do, and then thinking, right, I can go on and add to that myself. Harvey Barnes came on, scored a trademark goal for him. He scored 2 here at the Gallagher end behind me last week in the Sella Cup in that second game. Very similar finishes. He seems to only score goals like that. All his goals seem to be cutting in from the left-hand side and just curl it into the bottom corner. We know what's going to happen. The goalkeeper knows what's going to happen, but there's nothing he can do about it, and he did it again today. And if he carries on and stays fit, you can imagine him getting, how many did he get last season? 13, 15 goals at relegated Leicester. He could easily get 20 plus goals from a wide left position. So great options for Eddie Howe, and I think that's what is going to hold Newcastle in good stead if he can keep everyone fit. Now he'll want to make sure that everyone keeps their feet on the ground. I think it's fair to say Villa imploded in that second half. It could have been 7 or 8-1, but they kind of did make it easy for Newcastle. Allied to the fact that Newcastle were also just, it must be a nightmare to play against Newcastle because they're just on top of you every moment. They are snapping at the heels, so much intensity and energy, and it must be so difficult for teams like Villa to get out. They tried to play through the press. I think I counted on one hand the amount of times they managed to do it. Newcastle got the press right so many times, and the traps that they laid for Aston Villa ended up resulting in goals, and Newcastle duly punished them in the second half. So lots to talk about. As I say, Gordon was great. Barnes, who came on for him, was just as good, and obviously got his name on the score sheet. I thought Botman was class at centre half. That little cutback for Isak's first when he on the stretch, and the free kick was great. But Bruno was a little bit quieter today, but I think he'll grow into the season. I thought Joe Linton was just up for it as ever, really up for the baton. I thought he really complimented Tonali really well in midfield. And obviously Isak class with his 2 goals, could have had a third, probably should have got at least a hat-trick. But the star of the show, of course, was Sandro Tonali. That is a name that everyone was singing on the way home out of St James's Park tonight, and he's got a lot to live up to moving forward if he's going to play like that every week. So you can see exactly why Eddie Howe wanted to pay 50, 52, 55 million pounds for his services. And as I say, we all thought he would be eased into the team, like Bruno Guimaraes, like Sven Botman. Other signings have Alexander Isak even, but no, not the case with Sandro Tonali, which I think explains everything that Eddie Howe thinks about his new Italian recruit. And it's of course just got the Newcastle United fans whetting their appetite for future matches. The next game, of course, against Manchester City. If they play like that again, they'd have a chance against Man City. That could be an absolutely cracking match next weekend. So what a perfect start to the season. I don't think anyone could have dreamt of a 5-1 win. And this place, as I say, absolutely rocking. Before the match, it's as loud as I've heard it in a long time. An unbelievable atmosphere for the players to walk out in, and then of course at the end as well, when the fans were celebrating that 5-1 win. One final thing I wanted to mention in terms of Villa, I thought they were good for large parts. I thought it was very close, even at 2-1, and I just thought they imploded in the second half. But for me, I thought Moussa Diaby was excellent in that first half. Really caused Damburn problems down that right hand side. It looks as like he's going to be a real talent. I know obviously Newcastle were linked with him. He was offered to Newcastle a number of times. The club decided not to go for him. I think the fee was too much at the time, and they wanted to use the money elsewhere. But he looks like a real player, and I think he'll be a handful in the Premier League this season. I do expect Villa to be up there in the top 6 again. They do look a class team despite the 5-1 scoreline. But I have to say, when you're up against Newcastle in that sort of form, you really don't stand a chance. So Newcastle finish Saturday night top of the Premier League table after a 5-1 demolition of Aston Villa here at St James's Park, where everyone left with a huge big beaming smile on their face. And welcome to the new season it was for those who attended St James's Park this afternoon. 52,000 smiling happy faces being sent home after what was an unbelievable second half performance. An unbelievable performance throughout, but I think Newcastle just punished Aston Villa ruthlessly in that second half. Anyway, as you know, I'm quite new to YouTube, so still getting used to the videos, etc. Feel free to subscribe. I think the more subscribers I get, I'll probably feel pressure to keep this going. And do comment below. I've read all the comments so far, and it's great to hear all your thoughts on the match and what sort of content I can provide moving forward. But anyway, hope you all have a good rest of the weekend as I finish Newcastle 5, Aston Villa 1 here at St James's Park. See you soon.